Somewhere right now, someone is about to hand over real money for a vintage golf club they're convinced is a hidden treasure. Maybe a seller swore it only goes up. But in a few weeks, when they try to sell it, they're gonna learn the truth. It's worth almost nothing. The golf world is full of clubs people swear are appreciating when the market moved on years ago and left them behind. These are the 8 vintage clubs that crashed in value, and the ones you should never buy expecting a payday. And the numbers behind this are brutal. The average golf club loses about 1/3 of its value in the first year alone. Give it 10 years, and roughly 83% of what it was worth is gone. That's the current every club on this list is swimming against, and most of them drown. Let's start the countdown. Number 8. The TaylorMade rocket balls and the entire family of drivers that were sold to you as the future. When the rocket balls landed in 2012, TaylorMade marketed it like a launch sequence. The name alone promised to fire your ball into orbit, and it flew off the shelves at around $300 a club. The problem shows up the moment you try to resell one. TaylorMade puts out new flagship drivers on a relentless cycle, and every fresh launch makes the last one look ancient. That rocket balls that ruled your foursome in 2012 now sits on the used racks at Sideline Swap for somewhere between $80 and $115, and the trade-in kiosks offer far less than that. And it isn't just this one club. A TaylorMade R7 that costs $700 brand new changes hands for about $100 today. A Titleist 910 that was $400 sells for roughly $50. As a brand, TaylorMade sheds more than 20% of its value every single year, and its drivers are the worst offenders in the whole bag, because a driver can be 2 years old and already 5 generations out of date. So when someone offers you an old flagship driver as a steal, because it was once the hottest club in golf, understand that being the hottest club is exactly what guarantees the fall. The next model always makes it disposable. Don't pay a nostalgia premium for last decade's rocket. Number 7, Nike golf clubs. And this one genuinely stings, because Nike had the most famous golfer who ever lived carrying its bag. Tiger Woods won majors with Nike irons in his hands, and for 2 decades that swoosh sat on clubs at every level of the game. Then, in August 2016, Nike walked out of the equipment business completely. No more drivers, no more irons, no more golf balls. The trap is what a lot of buyers assume next. They figure that because Nike stopped making clubs, the ones already out there must be rare and climbing in value. The exact opposite happened. With no marketing machine rolling out a new model every year, Nike clubs turned into orphans the moment those releases stopped. A Nike VRS Covert driver that sold for around $300 new now sits on the used market between roughly $110 and $190, and the lesser drivers and full iron sets go for a fraction of that. There is one real exception, and it's narrow. A genuine Tiger Woods Tour blade, the limited stuff with real provenance behind it, will always have collectors chasing it. But a standard retail Nike club off the rack at your old pro shop is not that club. It's a discontinued commodity wearing a well-known logo. A swoosh is not the same thing as scarcity, and the used listings prove it every day. Don't buy the badge and call it an investment. Number 6, commemorative and limited edition collector sets. This is the crash the industry builds on purpose. Every so often, a brand rolls out a club or a full set stamped limited edition or collector's edition. It's numbered, it's boxed, and it comes wrapped in a story about how it'll be treasured for generations. So people buy 2, one to play, and one to seal away as an investment. Look at how real collectibles actually behave. The clubs that turn into genuine money are almost always the ones nobody ever planned as collectibles. A tour pro's actual gamer, a truly scarce antique, a factory mistake that slipped out the door, something with a real story the market uncovers on its own years later. A club that was marketed to you as a collectible on day one almost never becomes one, because the whole premise runs backward. Genuine scarcity is something the market discovers for itself. It never arrives pre-announced on a presentation box with a numbered plaque bolted to the lid. Fast forward a couple of decades, And these box sets show up online selling for less than a current set of ordinary clubs, because underneath the packaging, that's all they ever were. When a club shows up already marketed as a future collectible, be skeptical, because that sales pitch is doing the opposite of what a real collectible needs. Don't buy collectibles that show up already, calling themselves collectibles. Number 5, the Ping I-2 in its standard iron set form. Now, this is one of the most famous irons in golf history, and that fame is exactly what fools people. Back in the late 1980s, the Ping I-2's square grooves were at the center of a lawsuit that pitted Ping against the USGA and the PGA Tour, because those grooves put so much spin on the ball that regulators tried to ban them. That story turned the I-2 into a legend. So buyers see the name, remember the controversy, and assume they're holding a genuine collector's piece. But the legend leaves out the important part. Ping made these by the millions. They were one of the best-selling irons ever produced, which means a standard steel-shafted I-2 set today sells for pocket money, often somewhere around $50 to $100 for the whole set. The catch is simple. Ping produced these in enormous numbers, so a famous name sits on top of a club that is not remotely rare, and the used prices show it. There is a real exception worth knowing. The beryllium copper square groove wedges, the specific pre-ban ones collectors actually want, can still pull a couple $100, with trade-in valuations around $209 on record. But that's a single wedge with a specific spec, not the dusty set in the garage. Don't pay collector prices for the most mass-produced iron on the shelf. We're 5 clubs in, and every one so far has been something people genuinely believe is worth money. So here's a question worth dropping in the comments right now. Which of these 5 has been sitting in your garage or on your buy list? And keep watching, because the number 1 club on this list is the single most common hidden treasure in golf, the one almost every family is sure they own a fortune in. They're wrong, and I'll show you exactly why. Number 4, classic blade irons. The forged musclebacks from the golden era of the 1980s and early 1990s, the Wilson staff, the Ben Hogan, the McGregor sets that tour players built their careers on. These are, without exaggeration, some of the most beautiful clubs ever made. Thin top lines, soft forged carbon steel, a feel modern irons still chase. And that's exactly why owners assume they're worth a fortune. The market says otherwise. A vintage Wilson staff button back set, and specifically one that collectors call among the more sought-after Wilson sets ever made, recently sold on Sideline Swap for $49. That's 10 clubs for less than the price of a single modern wedge. The reason is simple and a little unforgiving. Blades are hard to hit. The sweet spot is the size of a postage stamp, and the weekend golfer who actually buys used irons wants forgiveness, not a history lesson. Iron sets hold their value better than almost any other category in golf, but that rule only applies to clubs people still want to play. A gorgeous forged blade that punishes every miss hit has a tiny pool of buyers, and a tiny pool of buyers means a tiny price. Admire them all you want. Just don't pay a premium expecting the next owner to feel the same way. If this is saving you from an expensive mistake, take a second and subscribe. I break down what old gear is actually worth and what it isn't every single week. Now for the top 3, where the crashes get a lot bigger. Number 3, the original Callaway Big Bertha. And to understand this crash, you have to understand how enormous this club was. When Ely Callaway launched the Big Bertha in 1991, it changed the game overnight. The head was 25% bigger than anything else out there. A 190 cubic centimeter stainless steel monster at a time when drivers were tiny slabs of persimmon and metal. Callaway built new casting technology with General Electric just to make it. Pros on the PGA, Senior, and LPGA tours were gaming it within a week of its debut before a single one had sold at retail. Inside a year, it was the best-selling golf club on the planet, doing $54 million in sales. And Callaway couldn't keep up with demand for 3.5 years. And this is the irony that kills its value. The Big Bertha was too successful. Callaway made an ocean of them, and everyone who played golf in the 1990s owned one or knew someone who did. Today, that same club, the one that rewrote what a driver could be, sells on used marketplaces for roughly $20 to $40, and it moves in bulk wholesale, lots of 30 at a time. Even the newer 2014 Big Bertha driver only pulls around $49 to $66 itself. The most important driver in modern golf history is worth almost nothing precisely because it was the most successful one ever made. Don't buy one thinking you found a rare piece of history. You just found the single most common driver of its entire era. Number 2, persimmon woods. For most of the 20th century, this was the pinnacle. A driver head carved from a solid block of persimmon wood, hand-finished, the choice of every great player from Hogan to Nicklaus to Norman. If you learned golf before the 1990s, the sound of a persimmon driver flushing a ball is burned into your memory. And that's what makes this the most emotional crash on the whole list. Because in the space of about a decade, metal woods arrived, and then titanium, and persimmon went from tour standard to obsolete in just a few seasons. And it didn't happen slowly. Persimmon fell off a cliff, and an entire category of clubs was left almost worthless. Today, a classic McGregor tourney persimmon driver with matching fairway woods sells for around $60 or best offer. Plenty of individual persimmon and older steel-headed woods trade for $10 to $20. The very thing that made them special, that they were shaped by hand from natural wood, is now the thing that makes them unplayable next to a 460 cubic centimeter titanium head. There is a narrow exception at the top. Rare tour-issue persimmons from legendary makers like the Wood Brothers do reach 4 figures with the right provenance. But the standard persimmon driver in your dad's old bag is not a 4-figure club. It's a beautiful piece of history that the market priced at the cost of a large pizza. Nothing in golf loses value faster than a club that new technology made obsolete, and persimmon is the clearest example there is. Number 1. Common antique hickory shafted clubs. This is the single biggest myth in all of golf value, and almost every family falls for it. Someone clears out a garage or an attic, finds a bundle of ancient wooden shafted clubs with names like Spalding or Wilson stamped on them, and immediately thinks the same thing. These are antiques. They have to be worth a fortune. They are almost never worth a fortune. Between the 1800s and the 1930s, these clubs were mass-produced by the millions, which means common hickory clubs today are worth somewhere between $3 and $20 each. Not per set. Each. And some are worth even less. The so-called pyritone clubs, the ones with painted or wrapped steel shafts made to imitate real hickory, are practically worthless. Ladies' clubs, youth clubs, and cut-down clubs sit at the very bottom too. And this is the rule that separates a $10 club from a $1,000 one. Old is not the same as rare. Age by itself means nothing when millions of the identical club exist. What actually carries value is a specific maker's name, the Tom Stewarts, the Nichols, the Gibsons, or a rare stamp like an RTJ or an Wimmet marking. And those genuine pieces can run from $100 to well over $1,000. But that's a tiny sliver of what's out there. The overwhelming majority of Grandpa's antique clubs are common, and common means cheap. So before you pay antique money for a bundle of old hickory, or before you turn down a real offer because you think you're sitting on a gold mine, get it identified by someone who actually knows the vintage market first. The odds are overwhelming that it's worth very little. Every club on this list shares the same lesson. In golf, value has almost nothing to do with age, or nostalgia, or how good a club used to be. What actually creates value is scarcity and real demand, and most mass market gear has neither of those. The clubs that truly appreciate are the rare ones, the documented ones, the ones nobody made many of. So if one of these is sitting in your garage right now, at least you finally know what it's really worth. Drop a comment with the club you were sure was a gold mine, and I'll tell you the truth about it. Get the genuinely rare stuff appraised, enjoy the rest for exactly what they are, And always check the real selling prices before you ever hand over $1.